In today's video, we are going to work with PowerPoint shapes. Now, this isn't going to be literally every single feature that exists within the shapes feature, but what I've done is I've gone through and I've chosen the things that are like everyday, things that I use all the time, and things that when I'm working with clients on one-on-one consultation calls, these are usually things that they don't actually know about. So there's a little bit of stuff that you might not know about if you haven't really gone in and really explored the full shapes feature. So let's get started. So first, I'm just going to add a bunch of different shapes, and then we're going to talk about some differences in features between those. So you can find the shapes in the Insert tab, and there's the shapes icon. And when you click on it, you may have already used this, so you're probably familiar with this step, but you have a drop-down menu of different shapes that you can choose from. So let's just go ahead and add a few that we're going to work with today. So one of the most common shapes that I'm always adding is a circle, or an oval as it's called in PowerPoint. So I'm going to click on that. And one thing I want you to be aware of as you're adding in your shapes is if you just click, like I just clicked once, it will add a nice, proportional circle. So it's like 1 inch by 1 inch. And we could just make that smaller or larger and maintain those proportions by holding Shift down on our keyboard and then we can increase or decrease the size that way. And it will maintain the proportions that way, which is nice. Now, of course, if you didn't want a circle and you did actually want an oval, you could just use these side boxes and not hold down Shift on your keyboard, that type of thing, to make it a non-proportional circle. We could have also inserted the circle in a different way to maintain the proportions. So let me just show you that real quick. So instead of clicking once, I'm actually going to click and hold on my mouse and then drag. Now you can see that it's, I can squish it, I can make it not proportional. But if while I'm doing this and I hold down Shift on my keyboard, I can also maintain those proportions. So just a couple things that you can do while you're inserting a shape. You have a little bit of control over things like that. And I just wanted you to know about that. Another thing that you probably know, but I just want to make sure, is that when you're clicked into a shape, this Shape Format tab should activate, and you have a lot of different options here. One of them that I use all the time is the dimensions of the shape, the height and the width. And I just use this for a lot of different things as I'm using shapes in my slides, building custom things, stuff like that. So it's just good to know that you can always go here to see the exact dimensions. And this little box here means if you check it, it's going to maintain the proportions as you adjust the size. So see how I've checked the box? If I increase the height, but all I'm clicking here is this up arrow for the height, it is changing the width as well. If I uncheck it, it's only going to adjust the height. And again, there's a lot of options here, but I really don't find myself ever really using this text outline, text effects, or any of these really. But I do use the shape fill and the shape outline a lot. Because I just opened a brand new PowerPoint file, I'm not using a custom one that I made or anything like that. There is an outline and I can go in here and adjust it however I want. I can change the outline color. I can remove the outline. And this is something that I don't know a lot of people know about, but depending on the shape, you can actually change the outline to something like a sketched outline that adds something that feels like, I came in here and drew over the circle. I have used this in a few instances and it looks pretty cute. So you aren't permanently stuck with just the normal outline. There are other options here that you can play around with and check out and mix and match with different border colors and that type of thing. If you just want this kind of style, if this look, makes sense for your personality or just how your presentation is designed. You can, of course, adjust the line weight as well. So again, you do have a few options here. I'm guessing that if you had played around with this before, you might have already known about the weight and the dashes. So, this is just sort of like a reminder that you can come in here and customize that from no outline at all to a thick outline to changing the colors, and even you can change the style a little bit. And what I've realized is that a lot of people don't know you can do something like this. So I'm going to duplicate this one. Let's say you didn't want an outline on your shapes and you wanted your shapes to be a specific color. You can actually go ahead and design it this way, the way that you like, and then right click it. And then go over here to where it says set as default shape. Now, when you go to insert a shape the next time, it's going to be, even if it's like a square, right? It's not a circle anymore. It's going to be that color. It's not going to have the border. It's going to have those core settings on every shape. So that's one way that it can actually save some time if you set that as a default shape, if you know you're always going to want your shapes to look like that at first. And this might be something you know already, but you can type into a shape. You can double click. And I'm going to type in the number 3, just as, something that could maybe fit here in this circle. And then if I click over here in the box, I can type something in here. I'll just do the title. Let's work with shapes. So you can, just like kind of like a normal text box. And once you add text to your shape, you can go to the Home tab over here, and you can actually come in here and change the font size, bold it, sort of do, change the alignment and that type of thing that, you're used to when you're working with just normal slides. So you do have full control over the text styling as well. Now, one thing that so far most of my clients do not know is that you can actually come in here and edit the shapes even further. So let me show you something real quick. We're going to insert, we're going to click on shapes, and I'm going to insert a speech bubble, which is under the section called callouts. So we'll go ahead and add that there. Now, in my opinion, the speech bubbles in PowerPoint look really weird. Like they're kind of goofy looking because the way they do this, like, I don't know what this is called, but the part that points to the person speaking, it's just like this gap here is so long. I don't know. It doesn't look very good. But what I do when I'm using these callouts is I will go onto the callout, the speech bubble. I will right click and I will go up here to where it says edit points. Once I click on that, let me see if I can zoom in a little for you. Okay. Once I do that, you see all these like black squares? You can come in here and pull them and just start like, it basically, you could do this in like PowerPoint. You could do this in like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and like professional apps. You can come in here and change the paths. I think that's, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, but I think it might be called paths. I could be using the wrong word, but you get the point. So we can come in here and just like do all sorts of stuff. Oops. And I accidentally clicked out, but no problem. I'll just right click again and go back to edit points. So I'm going to undo. All right. So yeah, I think that's just something that's really cool to know about, just in case you ever need to come in here and customize shapes even more than the options that PowerPoint provides. How I use this is I will just reduce this space a little bit. Now, the normal trick of holding shift down to keep a straight line does not work for these, which kind of sucks. So I just have to like be really careful and try to use my eye and keep that as like a straight line. And then I will come in here and I'm trying to maintain a straight line, and I didn't do it. I didn't quite do it. You can kind of see how this one goes up a little bit, but is anybody going to really notice or care about that? Probably not. But if I was worried about it, I would have, actually spent more time, but I am recording a video. But do you see how that looks better here? Let's just do a quick comparison. It is under the top here at the recently used shapes. So yeah, this just looks like a more normal, one. Yeah, like this just looks like the type of speech bubble that I see in things like comics or whatever. The problem is that once we do this, we do lose these sort of normal white squares that they have here, and this yellow one that does let us adjust this a little more. Like we do lose that. See down here, I can't, like we have these, which is, at least we have that, but I can't adjust this anymore. And that's probably because, that's where I edited it the most or something like that. So we will have to go to edit points to do any type of additional editing, but that's not that big of a deal. It looks a lot better, I think. So especially when you have it kind of like that, like this just looks like, it looks too much like they literally just put a rectangle and a triangle together and just merged them. Whereas this actually looks like a speech bubble. So it's really good to know about how to edit those points. The other thing that I want to talk about is some adjustments that you can make with shapes that are more like lines. So let's go ahead and just kind of move some stuff out of the way and give us some space to work with for those. So I'll go to Insert, I'll click on Shapes again, and there is a section for lines. So I'm going to go ahead and add one of those. Now, what I was just talking about with the speech bubble, it does work with lines. So see how we can, if we're inserting the line, I could make it sort of like go down or go up. But if I hold Shift on my keyboard, it's a little easier to do a straight line. Like it's less fluid. Like you can kind of see it like snaps down and see how far I have to move for it to snap down. So that's kind of what it does. If I let go of Shift on my keyboard, if you kind of watch where my mouse is, you can see it's a lot more fluid. So you can hold down Shift as a way to help you create a straight line. I'm also going to go in here and add a bracket because I think a lot of my clients so far, they do use lines, but I don't see them using brackets a lot. And brackets are a really good shape to use in a lot of different ways. I cover those different ways in my masterclass, but I just want everybody to know about these awesome brackets. And we're going to do some different designs with them because I think a lot of people will do things like they'll just put the bracket there and leave it as is. So we do want to customize this a little bit more because again, PowerPoint does make some like goofy default decisions, but we can usually override those in different ways to make it look a little more sleek, a little more professional. But let's pop back to the line real quick and just cover a couple things because I have noticed that, my clients tend to have a lot of experience using lines already, and I don't have to cover too much with that. You probably already know that you can go up here to shape outline. You can, again, change that weight. You can turn it into a dashed line if you want. I'm going to undo that. And you can add arrowheads. You can add one arrowhead over there. You can, from this drop-down menu, you can add an arrowhead on the left or on the right, on the left, on both sides, and then right, left, both sides. Okay, and you can kind of see that there is a list of quick options that PowerPoint provides. And of course, you can change the color to something else. And just like we were covering before, notice how when we added the line, it was not this blue. So even though we set this as a default shape, it is only going to work for things like this that are like a shape that's filled in. These are considered like a line in PowerPoint. But once you say you like a style, like you like the line width, you like the color, you like the arrowhead, or you don't want an arrowhead, you can right click the line and then you can set that as the default line if you want. So there is still the option to set it as a default, but it just works a little differently for like lines versus these kind of shapes. So now if we go to add a line, notice that even though I chose the line that does not have an arrowhead yet, if I click that, it still has an arrowhead because I set that as the default. So it will like override that, and all of the lines, I think, will have that arrowhead. So yeah, not a lot of people know about being able to set those defaults, so hopefully that's something new and helpful for you. There's one last thing that I do want to cover, and we can go back into the shape outline menu, go hover back down to arrows, and click more arrows. I think, hopefully one thing I would like to encourage you to do after watching this video is to just check out different menus, check out different options. If you see something like more arrows, click on it and see what you can do. Because again, a lot of the times I find that people think PowerPoint can't design good slides. And sometimes it's true in the sense that like their default settings are a little silly. But if we just go in here and edit it a little bit, we can actually make it look really nice. And that's how you find those customization options, is just like click around the menus and explore a little bit. And once we go into this, we can actually see that there's more options here than the drop-down menu. So in the drop-down menu, there is, let's see, there is the width or the line weight, so that we do see that here. There is the dash type in the normal drop-down menu, but there's new things like cap type. There's also even more customization options for the beginning point and the end point in terms of what type of arrow we use and what type of size the arrowhead is going to be. So let me zoom in a little more. I want you to be able to see this. Okay. So now we can do things like change the end. So it's just a circle, for example. So end arrow type. If I click on this, I can see that I can choose a circle and that's it. And there's nothing on this end and a circle on this end. This is really great for labels. And if we go back up here to the options, and if we hover under arrows, we see that that's not actually an option provided to us. They do that for like regular pointy arrowheads, but not for the circle. For the circle, you only have the option where it's on both. I guess I didn't click it, but you only, oh, it changed it. Yeah, see, so this is like the only option under the regular drop-down menu. So I'll undo that. And now we have something where we can label different parts of our figure, our custom model, or things like that. And we can do things like change the size as well. So we can make that really tiny if we want. We can make that a little larger. So again, there's just like more customization options here. So let's click back into that. And the other thing I want to show you is the cap type. So if you, I'll zoom in even more if I can, because this is a little hard to see, but this is the cap. So you see how it's just like, whoosh, it's just like cut off basically. It's what they call flat. If you click round, notice the difference. I'll move this one up here so you can see. So now it just like, it adds like a nice little touch. It's just like a little different. It looks a little more like intentional maybe. Like this again just looks like it just like stops, it just ends. Whereas this is like, okay, we're gonna like round it out, we're gonna smooth it out a little bit. So again, that can just add like a nice touch so things don't look so default in your presentation. There is technically another option, so we'll go ahead and click on that, and it's square. And I'm gonna click out, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really seeing a difference. Maybe it's because maybe you'll see it with like a different line or, you know, something like that. But here, I'm not really seeing a difference. It is usually the difference between like a cut edge and a rounded edge. So yeah, those are just a couple things to know about that you can come in here and change. This really comes in handy for like different types of custom figures, custom models that you might be building. So yeah, that's what I wanted to let you know about lines. I mean, you can see here that there are things to check out if you're interested that we're not going to explore in this video. Like you can turn the line into a gradient. There's even these other tabs in here for things like dimensions and like other things that you might want to check out. But for the most part, these are the additional customizations that I use or I use with my clients. Now let's scroll over because I want to talk about brackets. So we'll move this over here and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because I'm going to do some things with my mouse. So again, like, you know, the bracket isn't terrible when you first add it in. The default isn't like the worst thing I've seen, but there are ways to make this look a little better. I think one of the things I don't love about this is this corner right here. I don't know, there's just something about it that doesn't feel quite right. And this overlap here too. It's kind of like, it almost feels like too long. So yeah, it's, you know, I don't super love it, but no problem because all I have to do is click on it and look for the yellow squares. Because the white squares typically mean all we're gonna do is change things like the height and the width. Okay, that's typically what the white squares mean in this context. And it does help make this part shorter and not stand out so much. So that's pretty nice. But, you know, what if you actually need this edge here to be that long? Like you can't just rely on that, right? Because it's shortening everything. So that's what the white squares do. But if you see a yellow one, that usually means you can do other types of adjustments. And we have 2 when it comes to the brackets. So let's first see what happens if I change this one over here. Because I think, so this one actually can help you move the position of where it is. Again, a lot of people don't know that. They think the bracket has to be here and you can't move this around at all. But you can. You can actually adjust that to wherever you want it to go. But it's not like fixing the way it looks, unfortunately. But that's okay because we do have this other yellow square. So let's see what this one's going to do. I'm going to click it and I'm going to drag it down and look at the different style. Now I'm going to zoom out a little more just so you can kind of see it. Now it's like super, it has like a lot of flow to it and it looks very different from the default bracket. People might not even know it's a default bracket. They might think you came in here and drew this. So, you know, that's kind of like the far end. I can't go any lower than that. And then we can actually go back up to the top. And this is about where it was, although I did kind of fix this. Let's see, it was more like that maybe. So yeah, I think it's just something about how they're like, how this part's touching over here. So I can just do a little small adjustment like that. And now we have like a more rounded edge up here, which I think looks a little nicer. Like the curve just looked a little rough, I think, on the default. And we've opened this up and I think this just looks a little nicer than the default. But here's what's cool. PowerPoint starts us off with like a curvy kind of look. You can actually bring this yellow square all the way up to the top and completely just like flatten that out, I guess. It's like rough edges now, like straight edges, just straight lines. So this can really help you design visual slides and custom models, custom figures again, and do it in a way where it ends up looking the way you want, a way that matches the style of the rest of your presentation, a way that matches your personality. Right? Like some people are going to love this style. Some people are going to love this style. And then there's, you know, of course, the in between. So you have kind of like 3 main options for how you make your bracket look. Plus you can actually move this pointer around to different parts on the bracket line. These are all like fine-tune adjustments that you can make so that your slides look more professional and not just like the default shapes slapped onto your slide. So there's one last thing that I want to show you in shapes that pretty much no one really knows about. Like my clients are really surprised by this, and it's just something that I don't think people explore. It's called the merge shapes. So we'll go ahead and insert a couple shapes. I'm going to insert 2 circles because I'm going to show you what I think is maybe the most common thing that people are going to use this for. So I'll have 2 circles, different colors, just so you can see what's going on. And notice that they are overlapping. So I'm going to click on both of them and I'm going to go over here. The shape format tab already activated for me. So I'm going to go over here to merge shapes. Now, once you click on it, you can see that there are actually 5 different options: union, combine, fragment, intersect, and subtract. I'm not going to go in order as I show you these. We're actually going to start with the fragment one because watch what happens once I click this. Now, they did change to the same color, but if you look closely, I'm going to zoom in for you. Okay, let's do this. Move over. There is like a very faint line here. So what's going on? What it's done is it's like fragmented it based on where the shapes and the lines intersect, which means we can actually change the color and some formatting of more pieces than we could before. So this is a little hard to see what I'm talking about with everything being the same color, so I will show you. I'm actually going to leave the middle as purple and click this over here. And I'm going to make this, let's do red. And I'm going to make this blue. See what happened? So this middle part is purple. This part of the circle is red. This part of the circle is blue because, you know, red and blue make purple. But what people can use this for is Venn diagrams. A lot of people will do Venn diagrams like this. They will just take two circles, copy those, and try to adjust the transparency. So we need to add some borders actually. It's thick because it remembers my last choice, I guess. But they'll do things like adjust the transparency of one of the circles so we can see the overlap. But that doesn't look all that great. And we want some more customizations. We want to be able to design this a little more thoroughly. And in order to do that, we need more control over each part of the Venn diagram. So let me zoom out and show you a little more of what I mean. And this might look a little better if we add some, let's see, we might want to add some more borders here. It does not need to be that thick. Okay, so something like that maybe, right? So like, let's say you're working with a slide and you want to emphasize just the middle part, just the overlap. You know, maybe you want to come in here and actually change the colors of the like outside part of the circle. Or maybe it's the other way around. You want to emphasize this part of the circle, and maybe you want to change some of this so that, you know, you can sort of really show the audience, okay, we're talking about this part of the Venn diagram now. And then you can show your audience we're talking about this part of the Venn diagram and then that part of the diagram. Now, that's a little bit of strategy. That's something I cover in more detail inside my course, but that's kind of like a quick idea of why this is so helpful, being able to break this down and to actually control the colors like that. And you can achieve that by using merge shapes in PowerPoint. So that's the fragment option in the merge tools. So let's talk about some of the other options that were there. So I'm going to add a couple more shapes. We're going to add like, we'll do a square, we'll do a triangle. Okay. All right. And if we kind of put them together, you can see how, oh, okay, it almost looks like a house. Looks like an arrow, but it could also be a house. All right. If we select both of these, go up to Shape Format, click on Merge Tools, we have this option here called Union. And if I click on that, it just combines them into one shape. So again, we've literally taken the square and the triangle and turned it into one thing, which again, kind of looks like that's what that's what PowerPoint ended up doing here. It's a rectangle and a triangle almost. So you can take two different shapes and it will combine them. It will form a union into one. Let's take a look at the next one. For this one, I'm going to add, let's see, I will do a rectangle and let's just do something different. And this is kind of how I learn. I literally just get in here, I see that there's something, that there's a feature, that there's an option, and I just do it and I see what happens. So that's kind of what we're doing. I don't use these all that much, so I'm kind of refreshing my memory, we'll say, with these. All right, so I've added this like block arrow, which should count as a shape, not as a line. It should be, I'll right click and confirm. Let's see, set as default shape. Yeah, so it's not a line, it is a shape. So let's just click on both and see what happens. We'll go up, the shape format tab is activated, so I'll click on merge shapes and I'm going to do combine. Because to me, the language here is a little tricky, right? Because in a sense, I feel like union is combining the shapes. So what's the difference? Well, whenever I don't know, I just put things together and try it out. So that's what we'll do. So we click on combine. And so it's almost like it does combine them in the way that the union does, but whatever part is overlapping, it like removes it. That's what it kind of looks like to me. So you can make like, I don't know, just like cool looking things that way. I'm sure there's a way to like use that creatively. Maybe I'll think of a video idea where this is all I do. But for now, let's move on to some of the next options. Okay, so let's see, what did we have? If we're not clicking on multiple shapes, we can't even see the menu. So I'll click on a couple shapes just to activate it. So what's left is the intersect and the subtract. So if I remember correctly, these are a little more intuitive. So I'm going to add a square again, and now I'm going to add let's do a lightning bolt. Okay, and of course it's blue, so we can't see it. There we go. Okay, so let's select both of them and go to merge shapes and do intersect. So I will click on that, and all that's left is the lightning bolt. And that's because with this one, basically what is intersecting is going to be what stays. So I'm going to undo that real quick, and we'll contrast that with the last option, which is subtract. It's like these are kind of like a pair, like an opposite pair. So with this one, it's going to be what is overlapped is going to be like stamped out. It's going to be subtracted. So we will click that, and nothing is left. Nothing is there. So it didn't work as expected, which I kind of knew would happen, and sets me up for like a little side quest of something that I should talk about, because it is going to become relevant, especially as you're using merge tools and shapes and things like that. And it's the layers. It's the selection pane of PowerPoint. So I'm going to undo, bring those back to the slide, and I will do a new slide just so we can talk about this. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I am going to make a separate video that is specifically about the selection pane and the arrange tool and all of that. So I'm just going to give you just enough so that we can finish this video. What we're going to do first is we're actually going to go up here. I'm in the home tab, so it's just the normal tab. And there's this arrange icon. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go here to the selection pane. Now over here on the right, it popped up a section, and it's going to show us all of the objects that are on the slide. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add a few things. I'll add a lightning bolt and see what happened. Over here, it added lightning bolt 2. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add a square. And then if we look over here on the selection pane, rectangle 3. So it gives it like a name, and you can see it being added here. And if I duplicate it, it just keeps doing that. So every object on your slide, and title 1 is this placeholder. So every object on your slide is going to be here on the selection pane. So that's like important thing number 1. The important thing number 2 is that the order actually matters. So let's do purple for this one and purple for that one. I'm going to move this lightning bolt over here. Do you see how it is on top of the square? And then, well, you can't see because it's purple, but it's also on top of this lightning bolt. So this one is like overlapping on top of all of these. I can actually know that without even testing it, because I can go to the selection pane here and it actually tells you the order of things. The thing all the way on the bottom of the list is literally the thing on the bottom of the slide. And the thing on the top, that's the one that's going to be on top of everything else. These are called layers. And if you've used anything like Photoshop, any type of like Adobe product, Affinity product, you might already be familiar with this. So PowerPoint has this too. And watch what can happen. I can actually grab it from the selection pane. I can grab this lightning bolt, and I can actually bring it down all the way to the bottom. And now watch what happens. Now it's behind everything. You can't tell here because it's the same color, but it's behind it. And then same here, it's behind it. All right, it's even behind the title. Okay, so the layers do matter for different things. When you're building custom models, custom scenes in your presentation slides, you're going to need to be moving things around in terms of their layers as you're working on it. You need to like send it behind something or bring it to the front. And again, one way you can do that is by just like rearranging it manually here using the selection pane. The other way to do it is by right-clicking the shape, and that's essentially what these bring to front, send to back options do. So if we bring to front, it brings it to like the top layer, basically. That's what it means. So you're going to want to be able to do that just as you're arranging things and making custom visuals. Why this matters for merge shapes is the layers and the orders do actually matter for things. So let's go here and try to do what we were just doing and see what happens. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to bring this to the front, because this is kind of what we were doing, right? And the subtract merge tool is supposed to like punch this out so that what is overlapping gets subtracted from the shapes. So if we select both of these, let's just give it a try again, just to kind of like bring us back to where we were before the side quest. I'm going to click on subtract. Now it actually worked, right? It didn't work. I literally did like the same thing, but it didn't work this time. And that's because sometimes, especially when you're doing merge tools, PowerPoint can get kind of like tripped up on the layers aspect of things. So if I were to go back and watch, I think the real difference would be maybe I added the lightning bolt first and the square second, although I don't think I did. See, I already kind of forgot. So we'll just go ahead and select both of these and do shape format and merge shapes and subtract. And it did work this time. So I feel like this happens to me a lot as I'm like working with these. And so this might happen with you. And if it's ever not working, it's probably an issue with the layers. And so if we undo, like let's say it happened again where it was just the lightning bolt. What you can do is just click on the background layer first, hold down shift, and then click on the top layer, and then do merge shapes and subtract. I wish I knew this like 2 weeks ago, because I literally just made like a whole video about the cropping tool, and I went on like a whole rant about this, about how like the merge tool wasn't working the way it should be. It's PowerPoint for Mac because it seems to work on a Windows every time. But a viewer, Lisa, was like, oh, well, the way to fix that is by first clicking on the background and then click on the circle and it will work. So let's see. We've zoomed out a little bit and I'm going to select both of them because that's just kind of my habit. Like that's just how I select things. I drag and just like try to select them all that way. So if we go to shape format, merge tools, this time it's going to be the intersect, because what we want is the part that's intersecting, we want to keep it. That's what intersect means. So if we click on intersect, it didn't work. See, like this is what I mean. Like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to undo and follow this trick of like, okay, click on the background thing first, hold down shift, click on the circle. All right. We're going to go to shape format. We're going to go to merge shapes and click intersect, and it works. Yay. So it's confusing. It's annoying because they aren't in the correct position in the selection pane, and yet it still doesn't work every time if you are selecting the objects like this. It's like you have to kind of, I think, in my mind, the way I'm explaining this to myself is like I have to remind PowerPoint of like, this is the lower layer. I'm going to select it first, PowerPoint, okay? And then I'm going to hold down shift, and then I'm going to select the top layer, like PowerPoint, like you need to remember this. That's just, a conversation I have with PowerPoint as I'm using it. So there we go. So that's how the intersect tool works. And yeah, so I wish I knew that. And before I recorded the cropping video and went on a rant about how it just like doesn't work in PowerPoint. But to be fair, it should have worked. In my opinion, it should work if you select everything and it's correct in the selection pane. Like PowerPoint should be using this. But I'll end my rant about that there. So yeah, that is how the merge shapes feature can be used in different ways. You can, and as you can see, you can even combine some of this with things like pictures. Definitely something to play around with and experiment with as you work on your slides. There are a lot of different things that you can do with the merge tool. I mostly just wanted this to be kind of like a relatively quick intro to some of the features that you might not be exploring on your own, because I'm hoping I can sort of spark that creativity with you, and that you decide that you want to come in here and play around and just see what happens, experiment with merge tools, because that's really how you become an expert at the tech stuff in terms of PowerPoint or any slide software or any software that you're using. You just like get in there and do stuff and see what happens and play around. But if you do want some specific strategies, and if you want to know things like, well, why would I do this? How would I use this? Like, how does this help me actually create visually engaging, accessible, professional presentation slides where I can do things like actually share data and stuff like that? Well, if you're interested in that, then definitely check out my online presentation skills masterclass, because that's where I actually share the strategy behind presentation design. My YouTube channel is mostly for just like tech videos to help you explore slide software, especially PowerPoint. And that's because I just want everybody feeling comfortable with the tech side of things. My course is more software neutral. We're not really talking about PowerPoint in that course. We're talking about how to design effective presentation slides, effective communication, regardless of what software you can use. Because as I've said in other videos and other places, you can make beautiful, engaging slides using any slide software that exists. But that information is in my masterclass. I do also have like one-on-one consultation calls. I do also offer design services, and I can help with more than presentation slides. I can help with infographics, report design, comics even. So just like anything that's in this realm of like visually engaging, visual communication. My offers do change from time to time, so check out the link below if you are interested in more. But that's it for now. I will see you in the next video. Bye now.